Welcome to Redesigning Life. This week's episode is somebody special. Elina Fuhrman is a friend of mine and she runs Supalina. And I'll let her tell you the story. But why I think this conversation is going to be so beneficial is because Elina went from being a journalist to a holistic practitioner of healing people through food. And I feel like now there's so much going on in the media of constant noise that it's hard to understand what's up, what's down. So our talk today is it's going to be about healing through food, how you can facilitate that in your own life and how you could do it yourself. And I'm a DIY girl. So Elina Fuhrman, thank you so much for joining Redesigning Life.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on your show.
This is going to be fun. We have had many hikes and we've spoken about this exact subject, but I wanted to have you on the podcast because I feel like now more than ever, we are drowning in information about what's healthy, what's not, and it's confusing. Now, what I want you to tell everybody is sort of your background because you had a journey shifting from journalism to a wellness entrepreneur. And it was inspiring to me when you told me the story. So what motivated you? I mean, I know the story, but tell my listeners what sort of motivated that shift in your life?
Yeah. Well, that's right. I was a journalist. I was an investigative journalist. I was a international journalist. I was a war journalist. I did a lot of hard news stories, worked for CNN for many years. And it was my cancer journey that changed my entire life. I would have never been where I am today if not for the cancer diagnosis that I received now 16 years ago in 2009. Whew, it still makes me take a breath when I talk about it. But where my entire world just collapsed and I didn't know what was happening. I was a young woman with two young daughters and married at the time. And all of a sudden, I find a lump in my breast while showering. And yeah, I immediately knew, which is, this is the testament to the power of intuition. Even though I have absolutely no risk factors, nobody in my family has ever had cancer. And I'm 40 years old and just turned 40. And my intuition immediately said, oh, something is going on. And even though multiple doctors initially, just from visits, told me that, oh, it's probably nothing. When I went to do the mammogram, that's the first thing the technician told me before even the doctor analyzed the mammogram. She said, I'm pretty sure you have cancer. And so that's when my journey really started. And, and they talk about, like there is a conversation about grief, right? And when you are faced with a life-threatening disease and health condition, you go through grief. You go through trying to understand what is happening with my body. Why is this happening? And first, I was in complete denial. I'm like, nope. They didn't know what was happening. They probably made a mistake. Not true. So then when I did the biopsy, again, another thing happened very similar. The technician that was actually doing the biopsy, again, it has to go through pathology. It has to go through multiple, verification processes. But right there in the room, she told me, you might want to get a surgeon because I'm pretty sure it's cancer and it's not looking good at all. And which since I have, worked and spoken with so many women, and it's not been anybody else's experience because nobody tells you right there, but that was my
Yeah, I
experience.
was going to say, I thought that was even like, that's not
Yeah.
protocol.
It's not. It's not. I can just say the angels, somebody wanted to tell me, somebody wanted to give me this information before it was confirmed. So I had a moment to sit with it. So even though it was shocking, I still had that moment where I was telling myself that, no, it's not true. When they call me with pathology results, it's going to be clear because it can be true.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't
fine.
have cancer, right.
Everything is fine. I had no symptoms at all. I was at my healthiest. I looked great. I felt great. There was absolutely nothing, which is so tricky about cancer. It's often completely asymptomatic. So that was my turning point. My turning point was cancer. And of course, I was young. I was offered, or rather told that these are your options and these are the medications. This is, it's the standard of care, the surgery, the radiation, the chemotherapy, the drugs, and then possible metastasis because there are multiple tests now that they do on your genetic makeup where they can tell how your cells behave and what could potentially happen and how soon that will happen. Because cancer, the danger of cancer is not the initial cancer, it's the metastasis. And it's when it spreads to other parts of the body and it keeps spreading, that's where the problem begins.
And at that point, you're saying you were in great health. So I know that with all of the recommendations that they gave you, decided to heal yourself in other ways. So were you already, quote unquote, a very healthy person, eating organically? Did you already have that in your routine?
No, I've always been healthy, or I considered myself healthy. I always ate well. I didn't eat processed foods, but it was never just that, it was just how I was. I didn't grow up in the United States. I grew up in the former Soviet Union. And so we always ate whole foods. And that's kind of how I grew up. But I didn't know even the differentiation between organic and conventional. You go to the grocery store and you just want to save a few bucks. So why would I buy something that says organic when you can buy a perfectly great stuff that is not organic. So yeah, no, it never even entered my mind. Now that said, I've always been interested in medicine. And I've taken pre-med classes. I actually experimented with my health back when I was a like older teenager, like 19 years old when I was in college. I read a book by an Israeli doctor, and I started doing enemas. And everybody thought that I was absolutely insane. And I went on this apple cleanse, and don't ask me. It was just so long ago, but I was just always interested in that.
Yeah.
Completely, I don't know, I was just curious. And then in school, back in the former Soviet Union, I took classes, like medical classes for like nursing classes. And then when I came to the United States and I was in college here, I took pre-med classes. And then at CNN, I also, besides my regular job at CNN International, I freelanced for the medical unit, and I produced so many different stories on various diseases and conditions and things like that. So it's always been kind of
It's always
in
been
me.
a
But in
passion of
terms of
yours.
eating, I ate healthy and I considered myself super healthy.
And so you decided, probably your intuition, I would
Mhm.
assume, decided I'm going to take all of my journalism, expertise, experience, and really dive into the research to heal yourself. And that's how Supalina started.
Exactly, exactly. So I started by just making an assignment out of myself, and I was just going to experiment and see what works. And I dove into research. I wanted to understand cancer. I wanted to understand, why is everybody afraid of cancer? Why is everybody telling me that I'm in such trouble where I feel great? What is actually going on? What are my cells doing? Why is everybody so alarmed? Every time I walk into an oncologist's office, and I interviewed 5 different oncologists, they all look at me with eyes this big and they're telling me how things are really grim.
Right,
And
because it was an aggressive cancer. Did you, and I'll fast forward. So from
yeah,
that moment until you were cancer free, how long was it?
2 years.
And in
Well,
that years, did you do any standard treatment?
yes, I did. I
Yes.
did. I did surgery. I did lumpectomy eventually. Initially, I declined everything. And then eventually, I did lumpectomy. I started radiation as I was plugging along on my research. And then I stopped. And then I declined chemotherapy.
So you
And
never did chemo.
I never did chemo. No.
So during this time you're doing all of the research, what led you to soups?
Yeah. So as I was trying to understand my predicament, where I'm at, and what do I do about myself, and how do I heal myself if I'm not going to do what the doctors are telling me to do. And also, another little nugget of information is, because I was researching and trying to figure out, I was reaching out to various specialists in every field. And I was led to a world-renowned pathologist who examined my slides my tissue slides from my surgery, and he bluntly told me that the only way for me to survive is to change my life. And I remember on the phone, I'm like, excuse me, this famous pathologist is telling me that I need to change my life. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I don't know what it means for you. I just know that the way your cells behave, you have to retrain them. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And he says, if you continue on the path you've been going, your you're not going to survive. And so change your life. And so when we hung up, I really sat with myself and tried to figure out what that means to me. And so food, it was one of the things, that was easier to control because, I was immediately trying to see, okay, there is air, there is household products, there's environmental factors, there's water, there is just so many other things, right? But food seemed to be a manageable part that I could grab onto and figure out. And plus, I cannot control the air I breathe all the time. I cannot control the water I always drink all the time. I cannot always control what I wash my hands with, but I can control what I put in my mouth. And so that became my number one priority, is to figure it out. And what I realized is that I was far from eating healthy. There were a lot of things in my diet that were not optimal. They looked healthy, but they were not optimal.
Give me one example of one thing that looked healthy, but it wasn't optimal.
Well, I did not eat as many vegetables in the like green vegetables. I ate a lot of tomatoes and eggplants and onions and things like that, but I did not eat the cruciferous vegetables, for example, like the cauliflowers, the broccolis, the bok choys, the pak choys, all of the varieties of the vegetables. I also eat a lot of salads, and salads are very hard to digest. And so, which is how I transitioned into soups. And my gut was not optimal, because even though I appeared to be eating healthy, my gut and the lining of my intestines were not absorbing all of the wonderful ingredients supposedly that I was eating, because I was just passing it through. It was just cruising through my body.
I had a naturopathic doctor on my show, the Sabrina Soto show, and Dr. Nigma, and she told me that salads are not healthy for your gut biome. And it shocked me because I consider myself a very healthy person. So I just thought, when I have no other, if I have an option of a sandwich and a salad, always pick a salad. But
Right.
that's not necessarily true. Why
Mhm.
are salads so hard to digest? Because it's raw vegetables?
Well, a combination of things, because also what we consider a salad, right? In the Western world, in the United States, a salad is a bunch of leaves, right, with a dressing and maybe like a few slices of tomato, a few slices of onion, and a couple cucumbers, perhaps, right? To me, at this point in my life, it's no longer a salad. It's just a bunch of leaves. And leaves just scrape, first of all, you don't know how they were grown. You don't know. There are so many variables when it comes to salad leaves. They're not inherently bad. It's just they don't provide as much nutrient density that you need, but also in terms of digestion, they're harder to digest, and your body is focused on digesting it. And it's taking up all that energy on digesting something. And if your gut is not optimal, which most people don't have optimal guts, you're just not drawing any of the nutrients, the macronutrients, the micronutrients, the enzymes. They just don't have that.
So, and I also have heard a million times it's just like getting your gut biome healthy enough to retain all of the vitamins.
Mhm.
Does that mean, in layman's terms, like taking a probiotic?
Well, that's another myth, and I've fallen for it for years, that probiotic is supposed to be like good for you. But again, you don't know what bacteria you're actually missing out in your gut, if unless you've tested it, because you might be taking a probiotic with the bacteria that you don't need in your gut. And so it's actually ended up hurting you.
So, how do you get your gut biome to be healthy?
There are tests out there. There are holistic tests. There are several labs that unfortunately are not covered by insurances, but
Right.
you can get a stool test, which is
And if you
probably
can't
one
get
of
a stool test because you can't afford it or whatever the case may be, what's the
that.
next best
I
thing?
think then you just eat healthy. Then you just assume that your gut is not optimal, which it probably isn't, especially if you've ever taken an antibiotic, which most people have. You just assume that it's not optimal, and you heal your gut.
But by probably
Then you
having
don't
to,
take a probiotic. You
don't take,
don't take
yeah.
no, not you don't take a probiotic in a pill form. You take a probiotic in the yogurt form, like
Yeah.
coconut yogurt. You eat the foods that will provide you with the same benefits but will not be in a pill form. And I'm a big proponent of whole foods versus supplements. Now, supplements have a place, but not in a continuous life. You do them when you cleanse, when you try to target certain issues, but you don't continue taking supplements on a daily basis. That's a
Even
no.
like a vitamin D where everyone is deficient?
In my book, no. I you don't need it on a daily basis. You do it to get to an optimal level, and then you maintain, with sun exposure, with daily walks, with circadian rhythm, with, there's other natural ways to go about it than popping supplements.
Alina,
There's
I have in
Yeah,
my house a cabinet, an
of course.
entire cabinet full of supplements. It looks like I actually have a vitamin shop in my house. The amount of supplements that I have, and I don't even know if I just get them to make myself feel better, but it is pretty embarrassing how many vitamins and supplements I have. So you're wait, let me go back to the gut biome. So
Yeah,
it's better for people to eat the green, all sorts of vegetables, a whole rainbow, but
the
cooked,
rainbow.
probably cooked.
Yes. So again, there is a pattern to this. There is different ways to cook your vegetables, right? There are soups, which I absolutely love, but again, soups, you don't boil them, you simmer them, because you want the vegetables and the roots and the spices and the herbs, you want them to open up, and you want them to release their medicinal properties. You do not want to kill everything and just boil everything to death, because you're just gently simmering it. It's kind of like steeping a tea, just in a different way,
Yeah.
right? And so then you can cook with your hands. Hands are very powerful. You can massage your salads, and by salads, again, not leaves. You can grate a beet.
Kale.
You can grate a beet, for example.
Okay.
Now I know it's red, can put gloves on, but I prefer doing it with hands. It can wash off, and you massage really nicely. You can also smash your vegetables, like cucumbers, for example. And even though it doesn't cook it, but it puts the energy into your vegetables and creates a reaction. And that reaction is also touching it with your hands, because our bodies are so magical. It allows your body to, like, infuse them with your energy, and when you chewing it, with enzymes that you need to process them, and extract all the nutrients.
I know that you have a book, your cookbook, but it's out of stock. So yeah.
Yes.
So it'll be back in stock. And in your cookbook, you emphasizing using coconut oil. And everywhere I go, every post is about seed oils. I like they're just getting a bad it. Are seed oils that bad for you?
Well, again, so first of all, the seed oil that I believe started it all is canola oil, because canola oil has become a go-to cheap oil in the United States to cook everything with. And it is highly toxic. And it's not even, I don't even think it's real. There's so many. Have you ever seen a canola vegetable? I certainly haven't. I've looked into this, and I'm like, it's just a rabbit hole. I don't want to go into, I don't need to use it. But in terms of, there's all of these different seeds. There are sesame seeds, right? Sesame oil is used in Asian cuisine. There is sunflower seed oil that is, that's been used in Mediterranean cuisine actually for many years. There is walnut oil. There's all of these different oils that are not as dangerous, I believe, than canola oil and vegetable oil is, which is vegetable oil is, I don't even know what's in there. It's just a byproduct of different things, seeds, and I don't even know what's in there. But when it comes to the ancient, I always look to the ancient medicine and to the ancient practices to kind of like a reference. Is that something I would consume? But also we have to take into consideration the way things are done in today's world, which is highly processed, and how the crops are grown, how much pesticide and chemicals, and what is the soil treated with. So yeah, so there is all of these different dangers. Now, there are some dangers with olive oil if it's not a really good oil as well.
Right,
So you
right.
have you
Another
have
thing, it's like I
yeah,
just it's so frustrating, honestly, because I feel like, especially as a mother, I'm trying to do my best for myself and for Olivia and Nate.
yeah,
And then it's like, okay, I'm gonna go get olive oil, but now it's like even the olive oil could be bad for you because it's not
exactly.
pure olive oil. And then if you actually have to look at the back, and it could be a blend of canola oil and olive oil, and it's just, I mean, I feel like, do I have to move to a cave or, some farm and just live off my land?
It's maddening. Yeah, you just do the best you can. So my rule of thumb, right? So when it comes to coconut oil is high heat, right? So it's easier to cook with it. Besides, it has lauric acid, which is really good for your gut. And you just use a little bit of
And it
it.
tastes
And
like
then
coconut. It makes my food
no,
taste like
they
coconut.
actually, there is a coconut oil where they extract the coconut taste out of it.
Oh, you have to send that to me.
Yeah.
Send whoever's listening, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have Alina send it to me and I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah. I think Whole Foods actually has one that doesn't have, but there are other brands that have the
Okay.
ones that don't have the coconut taste in them. And when you're cooking, those are the easier ones. I agree, because the coconut taste
Yeah.
sometimes gets a little too powerful.
Yeah, which is fine in stir fried, but like in other foods, it just doesn't taste. Another thing that you use a lot in your recipes is filtered water. And
Yes.
I think that when people cook, they're like, oh, it's fine to use tap water because
Mhm.
of cooking it off and whatever chemicals are going to be cooked away. Is that not true? Why is filtered water so important when cooking?
Oh boy, water is a whole other rabbit hole. And especially for us in LA, water has so
So
much,
bad.
from drugs to chemicals to parasites. By the way, you can get parasites from
Oh,
water.
I saw your post the other day with parasites.
I know,
I mean, I
I know,
loved it, but Alina, it was so gross.
but it's so real.
It's so real.
It's so real. So filtered water is the best you can do, cooking for anything. I even wash, things that I consume like semi raw, for example, when I massage my vegetables, I only wash in filtered water because I just don't trust the municipal water, the tap water. Even with the shower and with the bathtub, I buy the little tablets for the bathtub that remove the chlorine and all of the chemicals. And then for the showers, I have filters. But now I was actually looking into that the other day, to tell you the truth. And there's some people that use multiple filters, because it's not enough to just remove the
Yeah.
toxins and all the chemicals. You need to reintroduce the minerals. So there is a filter to remove, and then there's another filter to reintroduce. And I'm like, whew, maybe I'm behind. I need to look into that
I
now too.
I swear by the filter. I have a shower head that has a filter in it in my shower, and I
Yeah,
swear by it. I feel like my hair has gotten better, my skin's gotten better. And if anyone's listening, it's in my Amazon store, and it was like 20. I saw it was like $28.
yeah.
You just replaced a cartridge, but it's in the link in my Amazon my Instagram. So
Those
I
things are
I do think
important.
it's
Yeah,
important,
so
especially
important.
when you have hard water.
100%. And also, what was actually interesting, some of my clients have told me, because I never consume soups outside of the ones that I cook, because why would I, right? But some of my clients have looked into the retailers and places where they make soups, and no soups are made on filtered water. They all made on regular water, which is
So
really
even So when you are using tap water, even if you're boiling it, if
yeah.
you're boiling it, is it
I'm
okay?
not boiling the soups,
I know.
remember? I
If
am
you are,
simmering them. Yeah. Yeah.
if somebody is boiling, is it okay to use tap water?
You can hard boil the water for 10 minutes
Okay.
before you and then cool it before having it. Yeah.
But I guess that think about it. If you're boiling your water in order to kill all of that bacteria, but you're also boiling your food, which is going to kill all the nutrients.
There you go.
I never even thought about that before.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I also know like how much raw food I know you're massaging, like you said, the beets
Yeah.
and the smashing, but is there ever a time that you go out and just have a salad?
Yeah, I do. I do. Of course. Of course. It's not like my whole life is very regimented. It
Yeah,
used to
well,
be.
we saw each other 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
You were seated at another table. Did you eat the salad?
Yeah. I did not.
What? Wait,
I did not. I
why?
sent it back.
It was delicious.
Well, a number of things. There was cheese on it, and I didn't know what the dressing was like, and I didn't feel like asking them what the dressing was like, and so it was just easier for me to just not.
So the dressing, if it had seed oil, you wouldn't have eaten it.
No, I wouldn't have.
But
Yeah,
what if it was olive oil and vinegar and that's it?
I didn't know which olive oil it was.
Oh, for crying
It's a
out
whole other.
loud.
It's high maintenance part.
You know what? You missed out because that salad was delicious, let me tell you.
It looked really beautiful, and the flower on top
It
was
was
just
so
so.
pretty.
Yeah, it was.
I
I
mean,
took
that's
a
the thing.
picture of
I
it.
feel like I wanna do my best to be as healthy as I can, but I
Yeah,
also feel like if you inundate yourself with too much, it's almost a detriment to your health in just the stress alone.
agree, agree, agree.
Yeah.
100% agree. And that's why I only recommend doing those, kind of like really regimented rituals is when you're cleansing. When you're cleansing, this is your time to really kind of go within, do everything right, cleanse your body. It's like taking a long, long shower, except it's obviously extended. And then you can go on about your life and you're more mindful afterwards because you just, cleaned the oil, you just cleaned your system. So you don't want to just, you know, do things that will harm you or make you feel unhealthy. And then there's the other condition is if you have a health condition, you have a chronic health condition, or if you have a life-threatening disease or something that's actually impeding your life, something that's not letting you be the beautiful, magnetic, radiant you that you are, then it's a whole different story than, you know.
So, okay, okay, sorry. Talk about this for hours. How I have heard from people that cleansing isn't important. And obviously, you have built not only your business, but you've helped like a lot of people heal their bodies. How often, if you're not dealing with a chronic illness, if you're just a normie or whatever you want to call it, like somebody who's just wants to be healthier, but is not necessarily wanting to heal anything in particular, what, how often should somebody cleanse?
Well, at least once a year. Ideally, every quarter, every season, because you go into a season and everything changes. The temperature changes. Your body needs different attention. But in terms of to answer that people don't believe in cleansing, and I know there are still people, unfortunately, that don't. Our body is self-cleansing mechanism technically, right? So why do we take showers and wash our hair? We can just go along, like if we're cleaning ourselves on the exterior, why shouldn't we clean ourselves on the inside?
Yeah.
It really makes sense,
I have to admit, I've never done a real cleanse before. I mean,
Okay.
I bought, of course, in my cabinet, a Candida cleanse. I've done a parasite cleanse. I never took the supplements. But you do believe in parasite cleansing?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm on it right now. I'm
But
cleansing right
but
now.
with supplements.
You can do it with food as well.
Oh, you can.
Yes, you can. It's a little more involved because you have to create those things on your own.
Right.
There are specific foods, for example, there is papaya seeds that are very bitter. Papaya seeds are really great of expelling parasites from your body. So also pumpkin seeds, raw pumpkin seeds are. Oil of oregano is. So you can actually create the medicine yourself by grinding papaya seeds with pumpkin seeds,
No one's
dripping
gonna do that,
oregano
Alina.
oil.
No one's gonna do
You know
that.
what I mean? There are ways to do this on your own,
Right.
if you're really motivated,
Yeah.
you know, but there are ways to shortcut it. And
Yeah.
there are companies that obviously, put different herbs and to make it all more palatable but still the nutritional part cannot be ignored.
Yeah.
You can't
I
just do the same thing you're doing and take the pills and think you're
right.
cleansing. You're not. Yeah.
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 And earlier I said normies, which was I didn't mean to say that because I do believe that
Yeah.
no matter where you live, what you're eating, what you're doing, we're all dealing with some chronic issue, and it's unfortunate, but it's almost impossible because of the world we live in, unless you are going to live on a farm and just great, good for you. By the way, invite me over. I'd love to come spend a week with you. But it is difficult. And I know that, everyone wants to be as healthy as possible, but you deal with one-on-one helping people heal from chronic issues. What sort of transformations have you seen in your career doing this now?
Oh, profound, absolutely profound. I had a client that came to me with advanced cancer. She had a right lung removed. She had metastasis in her thyroid. She had surgery, but she was very much on the fence of additional surgery with her thyroid and chemotherapy. And we embarked on a whole transformational journey. And after 3 months, she said she went to an oncologist and her oncologist gave her a clean bill of health. And she says, I'm crying because I just cannot believe that my nodules in my thyroid are gone. She's completely off her medications, and she's been on medications for decades. She's not taking any more medications. And she said that my oncologist actually wants me to speak to the Cancer Foundation because she just can't believe that I'm just all clear. And I say to this, I do believe because, well, first of all, she put in a lot of her own work in it because it's a two-way street. I can guide people and show them the way, but they have to do the work. And it is a very intense work, especially when you have something that is life-threatening. And she put in the work, and it was the most incredible transformation. She looked different. I had another client who was diagnosed with MS and was about to be put on very severe medications, and we went on a journey and completely healed. She never ended up taking medications, and it's been a few years, and she's completely clear and thriving, a completely different person. Changes your life. Truly, going on an intense healing journey changes your life completely because she's dating this beautiful man that she met, as she healed, and her priorities have changed. She left her big high powered job that she thought was her entire life, and then it turned out that it wasn't. Because you ask yourself hard questions and you're no longer distracting yourself with everything that is around you. You are going within and you're healing the root cause. You're healing what actually brought you to this place. And very often we don't know what it is. Some people do, and they're just not willing to jump in. But some people, and a lot of people, I find, and myself included, when I was on my healing journey, I did not know. I didn't know why I had cancer, and so it took me a long time to figure out why I had cancer. And those are very vulnerable moments when you have to ask yourself these questions and hear yourself answering those questions, and then sitting with that and going, oh my God, I didn't know that.
I think that no matter, sometimes it takes being hit by a truck with a diagnosis to change your life, and it's unfortunate that it takes that, but I think no matter what I have found in my own life and in my friends and family, when you finally put yourself as a priority, and that could be in the healing of yourself, a lot of things change in your life because when you make yourself a priority, you no longer put up with and I'm going to say a curse word. So if there's kids in the car, just turn it down. You don't put up with the shit anymore because you realize how precious life is, and how short of the time we have, and we have to make it count. And even if you have all the money in the world, but you have a pain in your side or a toothache, all you care about is healing that ache. You don't care about the fact that you have a yacht.
Yeah.
Let's be nice, but you can't even go on that yacht because your tooth is throbbing. So health is wealth and health is freedom. And I believe that in every vein in my body.
100%. And you said it, it's prioritizing yourself. And for many of us, especially women, that is a really hard pill to swallow
I know.
because we are nurturers by nature, and we're always nurturing, and nurturing ourselves feels like an anomaly. It feels, you feel so much guilt. Like, what do you mean I'm just going to lie in bed and chill and
Yeah.
read a book and
Yeah.
not do anything when I have a list this long? It's very confronting, to be able to allow yourself to give yourself the time, the love, the nurturing, the nourishment, everything that you need, especially at a time when you're trying to overcome a health condition. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Elina. I so appreciate. For anyone listening, I all of Alina's information is going to be in the notes, including the coconut water, and I'll also put a link to that filter that I love so much. If you are listening to this and you love the podcast, I hope you do. Can you please do me a favor, rate and review it wherever you're listening because it helps to get out there to more people. Until next time, thank you so much, Elina, for your time.
Thank you so much.